Fill up your tank recently? Yeah, that hurt. And here's the problem. When oil prices spike, it's not just gas. Everything goes up. The thing to keep in mind here is disruption. It's food, rent, flights, even your ability to access your own money. If you're an American living abroad, or thinking about it, this hits you differently. There are a few risks that most expats completely overlook. One of them almost caught me off guard here in Albania. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through how this kind of geopolitical shock actually affects expats, and the simple things I'm doing right now to prepare without going full doomsday prepper. Money. Whether we like it or not, money is often the first thing that needs to be considered. If you've been watching my content, then you know I already advocate for multiple bank accounts at multiple banks with debit cards for all of them. That's still true, but there's some other things that you want to consider if you want to prepare for an emergency in a foreign country. The biggest risk isn't losing your money, it's not being able to access it. Disruptions to international banking are a real possibility, and the only way that you can protect yourself from it is to diversify further. That means having a local bank account in the local currency and keeping at least a month's worth of living expenses in it. In a crisis, money doesn't disappear, liquidity does. So what would you do if ATM access became an issue? Keeping a store of cash available is the only solution. 2 to 4 weeks is optimal. And while larger bills are easier to store, they're harder to use in an emergency, so you want to keep at least a portion of that emergency fund in smaller bills. Keeping some in both the local currency and the broader regional currency is also helpful. There's a risk with keeping cash, like fire or theft, so make sure you keep it in a safe place and you know where it is, so if you have to leave in a hurry, you can get to it. Food. I'm not trying to survive the end of the world here, just some down-to-earth prep for supply chain shocks. At the very least, stockpiling enough food to last you a few weeks is always a good idea. As long as you stay on top of rotating your stock, the worst thing that's going to happen is it locks in a lower price for you. If it goes up, at least you saved yourself a little money. And if it becomes harder to get, at least you've got a little reserve to keep you going until the supply chains are restored. Focus on imported foods because that's what's going to be most affected. For us, that looks like rice, beans, pasta, maybe our favorite American cereal. Also, make sure you're aware of local foods and you make yourself acquainted with them. They'll be the most shielded from rising prices, but unfortunately fertilizer is going to be affected by this, and so it'll hit those things too eventually. And by the way, this isn't hypothetical. We've already experienced some of these things here. Water. In late December last year, there was a disruption in the city water here in Vlora where my wife and I live, and the water was literally shut off for the whole city for about a week. When you move from a first world to a second world country, this is the kind of thing that might come as a shock, but it was a valuable learning experience. That week without water was the moment that I realized that infrastructure is not guaranteed anymore. Now that we know that that can happen, we know how important it is to have some water stockpiled. For us, this is what that looks like. Our focus is just 2 to 3 weeks. That's 11 5-liter bottles under our bed. This is the brand we prefer to drink already. As I'm buying new bottles, I'm rotating the stock so I make sure none of these bottles have to sit any longer than they have to. It took just a couple of days of buying some extra water to build up this reserve. Now I know that if I hurt my back again, or we have a disruption to our water supply that's ongoing, at least we have our drinking water needs met for a little while. This is another small step that you can take that can feel very empowering. Speaking of power, let's talk about electricity. Power outages here are normal, but longer ones aren't something most people are prepared for. You might not care if the power goes off for a few minutes or hours, but do you have a plan if it goes off for days or weeks? Your phone is extremely important in a crisis. It might be your only way of getting news about the situation that's impacting you. It might serve as your map or your encyclopedia. Keeping it working and powered should be one of your highest priorities. You're also going to need to be able to eat, and you're going to need to be able to see in the dark. So I recommend these 3 things. A rechargeable battery bank, preferably one that uses a solar panel, a small camp stove with multiple fuel tanks, and rechargeable LED light sources, ideally a headlamp or a lantern. At the very least, this should help you keep your phone working, your belly full, and keep you from stumbling around in the dark. I laughed when my wife first suggested the headlamps, but after some more reading, I realized how smart of a purchase those really were. And I'd really suggest familiarizing yourself with any of this stuff before you have to depend on it. Going through a learning curve is hard enough. You don't want to have to go through a learning curve when you're dealing with an emergency. Medication. If you're already living abroad, then you probably already experienced this, but for those of you planning your exit, you'll find that getting certain medications can be pretty tricky at times. It's a very good idea to have a stockpile of at least a couple of months of any medication that you depend on. Perhaps more if it's safe to store it and you can get it, especially if it's necessary for your survival or for your comfort. Don't leave it to chance. This is one of those things that doesn't matter until it really, really does. Having a little extra built up is not something you'll regret. There's a real possibility that we could see disruptions to the pharmaceutical supply chain, so prepare accordingly. Non-essentials. Here's what most people don't think about. The first things to disappear aren't the essentials. They're the things that make life feel normal. You like coffee? How about chocolate? Maybe you have a favorite brand of imported alcohol. These are exactly the kind of things that could experience rapid inflation, become much harder to get. So it makes a lot of sense to build up a small reserve. Expect prices to go up on electronics, as if they weren't already sky high from the RAM and memory shortages. Cosmetics may go up and get harder to get. And for my folks living on food delivery, don't be surprised when they raise the delivery fee. I'm really just scratching the surface here. Oil touches everything in our economy. South Korea may be looking at a trash bag shortage, for example. For those of us that lived through COVID in the US, you might not regret stockpiling a little extra toilet paper too. Luckily for me, on this side of the world, bidets are very popular. This is the immediate risk: travel costs. This is a big reason I wanted to live in a walkable city in the first place. I haven't owned a car since we moved here in May of 2025, and I never looked back. If you're putting gas in your car, you're gonna get the worst of this, and it's gonna hit you first. I'm sure you already know that. It's already hitting you. I'm watching the prices rise rapidly at the US pumps. We can expect everything from plane tickets to bus fares to go up in the next coming weeks and months. And if you're thinking about ditching the car, now may be the time. If you're planning on flying somewhere soon, you might wanna go ahead and book that flight. If you can build your life around traveling less, that might be the only option. I know this is especially hard for the nomads in my audience, but don't be caught unaware. Oil has already spiked. It's only a matter of time before this starts to ripple through. No one has a crystal ball. All anyone can do is react to what's happening and speculate on what's to come. When you're making plans for negative scenarios, it never feels good, but you'll feel a lot better having done it. These actions independently may feel small, but they really add up together to provide some real peace of mind. Hopefully, you'll never need any of these safety nets, but you're sure to be thankful you have them if you ever hit one. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And if you're thinking about leaving the US, check out this next video. It breaks down what people get wrong before they move.